Want to know how to lose all integrity as a documentary filmmaker? Seems like you just make a deal with Netflix. Hey y'all, my name is Mike Vaughn, and I wasn't really planning on making this video, but holy crap, guys. After seeing Cold Case Who Killed JonBenét Ramsey on Netflix, I have to say this is a shining example of what's wrong with modern documentaries. Before we begin, please consider giving this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more great content. Now, back to the video. I'm a sucker for true crime, podcasts, documentaries, you name it, I'm into it. And conversely, I'm also really fascinated by the ethical side of this consumption. On the one hand, the act of someone, whether that be a YouTuber, a podcaster, or, a major network, exploring or shedding light on a missing persons case, for example, can be seen as either a cautionary tale or very much a public service of sorts. Yet, it threads a fine line between informative and exploitative. Ryan Murphy is a perfect example, as he's someone that seems like he's always courting controversy in how he presents true crime filtered through his fictional entertainment lens. Murphy is a really interesting case. When I saw Dahmer, for example, I didn't really foresee the backlash. In fact, I took note that Murphy did spend time really fleshing out the victims, therefore, their terrible demise all the more tragic. The episode that springs to mind is episode 6, entitled Silenced, which spends the whole episode exploring Tony, a deaf man that sadly encountered Dahmer. The episode has an impressive 8.8 on IMDb and has received praise from fans. Still, Murphy has been taken to task for not being sensitive enough in handling the material, and victims' families were allegedly not involved in the series. And before you get upset at me, I do think these are some very valid criticisms. But I don't see the same kind of outrage for these one-sided and really unethical documentaries, such as Cold Case Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey. In this 3-part Netflix series, we get a nice, neat package of how the Ramseys are totally innocent. They're just totally innocent, you guys. Don't think about, for 1 second, their behavior being very odd. The Ramsey stories changed a bunch. No, listen, nothing to see here, fam. It's fine. I was really looking forward to this documentary because I have been fascinated by this case. I was a kid when this story broke, and I was not that far off from the age that Burke would have been at the time. It's just this bizarre puzzle that I truly think is never going to be solved. And when I finished it, I was like, oh well, this isn't the first wildly one-sided documentary, and it certainly won't be the last. And then it struck me, why was this so normalized to me? Taking a look at the article, The Complete Guide to Ethical Storytelling for Documentary Filmmakers, it talks about these generally accepted rules to make an ethical and balanced documentary. And shockingly, but not that surprising, Cold Case feels like it bends, if not outright breaks, a lot of these fundamental rules. Facts in the case are cherry-picked to fit the scope of the narrative. For example, the hotly debated stun gun theory. Amazingly, the documentary spends about 10 minutes on this. To sum up, the theory is that an intruder used a taser to completely incapacitate JonBenet, knocking her out and then taking her to the basement. The biggest supporter of this was retired detective Lou Smith. He cites these marks as his smoking gun or taser.
I have exorcised the demon.
He states that he tested this theory on pigskin, which is in fact a very close approximation to human skin. And on face value, I admit that, damn, this looks very compelling. However, what the documentary leaves out is a spokesperson for Air Taser, the brand of taser Lou picked since it fits these particular marks, denied that their stun gun would make such a mark. Also, when Lou tested this on the pig, you have to understand, and of course the documentary doesn't frame it like this, the pig is completely stationary. It's just going to lay still because it's dead, allowing the person to make a perfect two-prong red mark. Again, this wasn't brought up in the documentary because it would paint a very different narrative than the one already established. And listen, there's a lot of other examples of cherry-picked data and or things being just taken out of context. The film paints the media to be this boogeyman, and while yes, I cannot deny that the reporting on this was incredibly ugly, it cherry picks only the worst examples to make their point. In a recent article by the AP News, police deny withholding evidence, as is attested in the documentary. The director of this film is the legendary Joel Berlinger, who made the infamous and widely acclaimed Paradise Lost trilogy. So, for those not familiar, the three films explore the West Memphis Three, who Berlinger asserts was wrongfully convicted of killing a young boy in the woods. The teens looked scary, therefore they were made a scapegoat, and the film's narrative attends. That's why the police narrowed in on them and only them. The first film was a hit. Since then, Berlinger, outside of directing one nonfiction film, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, which I don't care what y'all say, I think is great. Please don't come at me. But besides that, he's just made a career of true crime documentaries and series. While researching this video, I found an extremely eye-opening article that kind of blew my mind. In the interview, Berlinger doesn't even really hide the fact that this documentary is a piece catering to the fact that the Ramseys were innocent, saying that he was embarrassed that he bought into the media painting the Ramseys to be these monstrous people. And listen, being fair and balanced myself, he's not wrong in that statement. The Ramseys were always looked at with suspicion, but he leaves out some really important facts, and even giving the parents a lot of grace, because who the hell knows how one should, quote, act like during this situation. Their behavior was odd, and it just didn't feel right. Not to mention, Berlinger has to be well aware that, statistically speaking, the parents would be the first suspect, especially if you found the child's body in the freaking house. But, oh, listen, we can't mention that because we gotta stick with this redemption. Being fair and balanced myself, the documentary is really well made, and it has a really nice array of rare images and home movies that are utilized extremely well. I've seen this theory posed online, and I don't believe even a fraction of what I read online like this, but it's been kind of posited that could John Ramsey's wealth really buy a PR propaganda film like Cold Case? Doubtful, sure, but with how entirely one-sided this, quote, documentary, end quote, is, I don't know. I think it's a question worth asking. I know for one thing, it certainly makes me look at his past films in a whole new light. For example, how biased is something like the Paradise Lost films, which I had previously considered the gold standard in true crime documentary. Personally, I have no strong opinion on who I think did this horrific crime. And for a crime this famous, it's just shocking how little we really do know about what happened for sure. Again, even giving the parents a lot of grace, their behavior was just very odd and even off-putting in the days and months after the crime. So if you really want a video that is unbiased, made on not even a fraction of the budget of this so-called documentary series, I implore you, check out Matt Orchard's video, The Endless Riddle of JonBenét Ramsey, which is very informative and has way more ethics than this Netflix documentary does. Because I hope y'all support those kind of videos that have no agenda. They don't have to answer to anybody. And after all, isn't that what real journalism should be? So I hope y'all enjoyed that video and, found it interesting. As always, I try to link all my sources in the description. And hey, while you're here, maybe consider checking out some of these videos, and I'll see y'all in the next one.